Hey, this is Block 7, The Greatest Generation, Section 2, The Rise of the Dictators, with the Italo Abyssinian War. The last chance for the League of Nations to kind of make its weight felt and to kind of punch at its weight level took place in 1935. In 1935, Mussolini's Italy, kind of with these grand ideas of recreating the Roman Empire, invaded the ancient kingdom of Ethiopia, also known as Abyssinia. The Ethiopians fought back bravely. You can see by this picture that they are using a vast mixture of traditional weapons and obsolete modern weapons. They have some modern weapons, machine guns and planes and whatnot, but not nearly enough. They fight very, very bravely, but the Italian army is more modern, it is more mechanized, it is using modern airplanes. And the Italian army defeats the Ethiopian armies fairly easily. What was the League going to do? If you go back to Woodrow Wilson, that an attack on one member of the League of Nations is an attack on all the members of the League of Nations. Here we have direct violence perpetrated by one League of Nations state, Italy, on another League of Nations state, Ethiopia. What is the League going to do? The Treaty of Versailles says everyone has to come into Ethiopia's defense. And the League starts giving speeches. And the League says, we're serious this time. You know what we're going to do? We're going to establish an oil embargo. An embargo is a refusal to sell a product. If the League of Nations had slapped an oil embargo on Italy, Italy would not have been able to import any oil. If Italy was unable to import oil, they would not have had any chance to keep that war going, and it would have crippled their economy. So for the first couple days, the League of Nations, while they weren't going to go to war with Italy, were going to impose economic sanctions that were harsh. And then they started to back off. And then they backed off a little bit more. They said, well, you know, if we do establish the embargo, it might, what if they don't, how are we going to enforce it? It might lead to a naval war, and a naval war might lead to a land war, and we don't want to go to war. You know, we're in the middle of the Great Depression. You know, it's hard enough, you know, keeping control of our colonies. The last thing we need is war with Italy. And you know what, it's Ethiopia. I mean, it's nice, I guess. But is Ethiopia, is it worth war? Is Ethiopia worth war? And the answer for the League of Nations was no. And Ethiopia was sacrificed to Mussolini. In a very poignant moment, the Emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, went in front of the League of Nations in 1936, and he pretty much excoriated them for doing absolutely nothing to save his country. And he said at the end of his speech, he said, today, and he said this to the assembled members of the League of Nations, to the British, the French, and everybody else, today, he said, today it's Ethiopia, you know, tomorrow it will be you. God remember your judgment. And of course the League, faced with an absolute test of whether it would actually work to keep the peace or not, utterly and completely failed that test. And you can rest assured that Hitler was watching very, very, very closely to see what the League would do.